This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with a 420 news update here because it is 3:30 in the morning, almost 420. Had two great workouts today, and I'm going to get to some news. WWE had a screw up today on Raw, or yesterday, Monday night. We all know they use fake crowd reactions, and it's not surprising they use fake crowd noises for the lowest drawing WWE champion of all time, both in ratings and attendance, Drew McIntyre. When he was coming out on the program tonight, they accidentally left in part of John Cena's 16-time world champion introduction when I guess they were recycling a John Cena crowd reaction and trying to implant it for when McDonald or McIntyre, whatever the hell he calls himself, comes out to make it seem like he's actually over, which he is one of the biggest dorks ever in wrestling. Complete geek, in my opinion. And I think it's funny that WWE screwed that up. By the way, I put the link to that fake crowd reaction thing in the description of this video for anyone that wants to check that out. Ric Flair, as I already reported today, asked for his release from WWE and was granted his release. And because of Ric Flair's past relationship with the Turner Networks, most people figure he is AEW bound. The final SmackDown rating with the DVR numbers was 0.57 for Friday night's SmackDown that featured John Cena. Goldberg versus Lashley was confirmed on Raw this week for SummerSlam. Braun Strowman, who was released a while ago from WWE, but it's already rumored to be re-signing again. What they do is they do release people, and this could be the situation with Bray Wyatt too, who was released earlier this week. They signed a lot of people to ridiculous contracts back around the time they were worried about too many people jumping to AEW. And they paid people a lot more than they were worth. So what it seems like they've already done it with some is they release them and then they renegotiate for lower amounts of money. So that may very well happen with Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. I've only heard of one independent booking for Braun since he was released, and he is asking for $25,000 US for independent appearances, and that's for Qatar Pro Wrestling, which is run by a bunch of wealthy sheiks over in the Middle East, and that's coming up in February. They haven't run since the pandemic. A guy I'm friends with, Alofa, one of the Samoans, is the Qatar Pro Wrestling champion. But the reason I was bringing up Braun Strowman is he said in an Instagram post that his left leg is 15% paralyzed due to a 2015 back injury that he suffered. And he said, quote, "My big deer lifting days are a little behind me since my back injury in 2015. My left leg is around 15% paralyzed," end quote. So I've already said all along that people saying that he's going to get into MMA or bare knuckle fighting are dreaming, because this guy was making millions of dollars for fake fighting. He's not going to make that much for real fighting. And right now, he's also saying his left leg is 15% paralyzed. Good leg movement is very important for fighting. So if you have a partially paralyzed leg, you might not even get an athletic commission to medically clear you to fight, let alone fight. So that's just another reason you're never going to see Braun Strowman do real fighting. We saw Brock Lesnar back in Royal Rumble. I forget what year it was. I think it was Royal Rumble 2019. He nailed him with a shoot punch, and he just took it. So a real fighter, somebody that has real fighting spirit, would have actually fought back a bit if Brock Lesnar had done that. For instance, Chris Jericho has attacked Brock Lesnar before. The truth of the matter is, you don't really have that much to worry about. Someone's bound to break it up, as was the situation with when Jericho attacked Lesnar backstage. But Jericho is a real fighter. Win or lose, he's going to try and fight you. But when Braun took that punch from Brock, it was obvious he was not a real fighter. Very good news for AEW regarding their pre-sale for their August 20th Rampage taping at Chicago's United Center. Apparently, they sold out completely all 13,600 tickets already. They're calling this show The First Dance, and they're heavily hinting that it's going to be CM Punk's AEW debut. So Punk will at least pay off there. By the way, for everyone saying WWE is releasing all these people, they must be in dire financial straits. They just profited $29 million in one quarter. They're just cutting big contracts that they don't need anymore. Well, the current product is not great. I fully admit that. They have tons of footage they're making money on. I can only imagine what their YouTube channel makes. They have this $1 billion deal from Peacock. They have hundreds of $1 million a year in TV revenue coming in. They're not hurting for money. AEW might be signing new guys and might be more exciting. Their ratings are going up, but they're in the red. They haven't profited yet. Tony Khan actually did an interview recently where he admitted that. So when you look at both companies, although it's always interesting when people jump back and forth, and I'm glad that there's finally a company that can afford to pay real money to wrestlers because it's good for the business overall. They're not anywhere close to WWE as a financially successful company. But the owner of AEW, Shad Khan, whatever Tony Khan's father's name is, he is worth $14 billion. So I'm sure that company is going to be around for a very long time. He can afford tax write-offs. I'll get into some of your questions. Hello, Anthony. Maura says that's not new with the glitches of the fake crowd noise. Davin says WWE is going downhill. Their current product isn't very interesting. I will admit that. And 0.57, including DVR numbers for SmackDown on a major network with Cena and crowds back last week, with Cena a big movie star now and he's only just returned. That definitely shows a decline in interest. They definitely need to find a new star. But losing 72-year-old Ric Flair, well, he's still very entertaining. I'd rather watch a Ric Flair segment in wrestling than pretty much anything else, other than maybe a Rock segment. But it's not a big loss to lose 72-year-old Ric Flair. Braun Strowman making over $1 million a year, that's not a big loss. For the people that said he never got opportunities, he was a 3-time WWE champion. For people that say he was given stupid ideas and the match he had with John Cena was an abortion and it wasn't his fault. Apparently, according to reports, it was Bruce Pritchard and Bray Wyatt that produced that abortion of a match with Cena at WrestleMania there in Florida, which was one of the worst matches I've ever seen. People vaporizing into thin air during a match. That was horrible. An embarrassment. Made me embarrassed to be involved in wrestling. Samuel, I just talked about this. They're generating interest. The question is, will Daniel Bryan bring in new fans? Will CM Punk bring in new fans? Both of those guys are smart mark wrestlers. That smart marks, like the average fan, the average guy off the street like me, does not like the little guys that do spots like Punk and Daniel Bryan, the leg slapping guys. Will I watch CM Punk's debut? Yes. Will I watch Daniel Bryan's debut? Yes. Would I watch Ric Flair multiple times in AEW? Yes. I'll probably watch almost every segment he does. If they can acquire Ric Flair, that would actually be great for them. If they could acquire Brock Lesnar, that would draw more mainstream fans. If I were them, I would really go after Brock Lesnar. That would be a hit to WWE, because Brock Lesnar and Cena are probably two of the best guys WWE has right now to draw interest when they're lacking in interest. I think Goldberg they have tied up for another at least year and a half, and he's getting pretty old. Cena will never leave WWE. Lesnar is very money oriented. I'm sure for the right price, he would go over. Jason, how can you send me money to help support me? Well, we do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/thehannibaltv. You can tip me on here, or you can message me at Devin Hannibal Nicholson on Facebook or Twitter at Devin Hannibal and ask me how to PayPal me. And I do appreciate that. And people ask me all the time to sponsor shoot interviews. Of course you can sponsor a shoot interview. I'm 100% behind that. Someone actually wanted to sponsor a shoot interview with me and Deborah McMichael, who was also married to Steve Austin at one point, but nobody seems to have a contact for her. So if anyone has Deborah Marshall's contact information, somebody is willing to sponsor a shoot interview with me and you. So if someone wants to hook us up, I just told you how to message me. And if you follow me at Twitter at Devin Hannibal, DEVONHANNIBAL, and send me a DM, I will follow you back. Nicholas can't stand Drew McIntyre. I just can't stand, in every interview he does, he talks about the magical moments and the friends, how everyone's friends in the locker room, and the storytelling. He is just such a dweeb. Such a dweeb. Paladin, is Braun Strowman worth $25K to an independent company? Not really, no. Qatar Pro Wrestling, where it's run by sheiks that are worth tons of money. Yeah. And Qatar, WWE doesn't come there, and they run a big arena. It is worth having them there. But your average independent show, an excellent independent show, will draw like $30,000. A top of the line independent show. I haven't heard of many indie shows that have drawn over 30,000. There may have been blips here and there. My biggest gate ever was like 75,000, but that was like a one-time gate, and I've had 3 or 4 over 30,000. But the $75,000 gate had $65,000 in costs. So yeah, let's just say your average spectacular indie show with a loaded card that would make 30,000 probably has 20 to 25,000 in costs. So Braun Strowman is 25,000 on his own, not including flight, hotel, not including the rest of the card, the advertising, because you got to tell people he's going to be there. I mean, that's a lot of money to make back. And people don't want to spend a huge amount of money on wrestling tickets for an independent wrestling show. So is he worth that? Only in the right situation, which is probably why we only see one booking for him. But again, he was making millions in WWE. I don't blame him for asking that, because if he's a multimillionaire, why should he risk getting hurt for anything less than 25,000? 25,000 to him might be the equivalent of like $300 to a normal person or less. DK Bliss has not watched wrestling for years since it got weird. I haven't watched wrestling as a fan since like 2005. Barlight Broker says it's over for WWE. As I said, I didn't watch the highlights for this Monday. Maybe I will. But the worst was last Monday when I saw the angle with, what's his name? The guy that says bro all the time. What the hell is his name? It's not coming to me. But they had like a 35-year-old man who had a scooter, and like somebody breaks his scooter and he's almost in tears over it. It's like, doesn't Raw air at like 10, 11 at night? Why are you doing such childish angles? It's just horrible. And I don't know why I can't remember his name, but it was a terrible angle. Jesse says, good to see me. Good to see you on here. Wade, let's hope CM Punk's wrestling promos were better than his UFC promos, because his UFC hype was the drizzling shits. And it was just weird. After he got his ass kicked by that Mickey guy in the first fight, he's like going over after and giving the guy advice. It's like, wait a minute, I just kicked your ass. Why are you maybe he took a bunch of hits to the head and was just babbling and completely out of it. But what a weird guy CM Punk is. But good for him for making the money with AEW. Kung Fu believes WWE is dead. Len wants to see WWF back. Paladin brings up the Khans are billionaires. Yes. They'll be around as long as they want to be around. And if I had 14 billion and I had a son that was interested in something, I don't care if it's ball hockey, arena football, and like I could give him millions to start a company and not care if it makes money or not, I would do it. Why not? Sean, I never liked CM Punk as a wrestler, and I'll say this again. If anyone wants to look up, search Hannibal kicked out a WWE event. They kicked me out of a WWE event in 2012, and there was like nobody at the event. CM Punk was the headliner of that event. Carmen, yes, Matt Riddle was the guy with the scooter. They expect us to believe that a guy who was a UFC fighter and is in his mid to late 30s and is making hundreds of thousands a year with WWE is going to cry over a scooter getting broken. Tommy the Cat misses Piper's Pit. That was so much better. And you know what? Piper's Pit aired on Saturday afternoons or Saturday mornings on the Superstars of Wrestling tapings. And that was better content than the scooter crap airing at 10 o'clock at night that they're doing now. I think Ryback is a loser. I've said that, Paladin. And by the way, I kick his ass in views. And there's a good example of a guy that was pushed to the moon in WWE, and everyone's pretty much already forgotten about him. He was overrated. And why I thought he was a loser, I had nothing against him, but he messaged me on Twitter a couple of years ago just to tell me I was blocked. Who messages someone to say that they're blocking you other than a loser? The person asking about a Rip Rogers interview, I've done one. There's like an hour and a half Rip Rogers interview on this channel. So I wish everyone a good night. As Wade Wilson says, Ryback was the poor man's Goldberg. Yeah, and Goldberg at almost 60 years old now draws a lot better than Ryback did when he was getting that push. Whenever, how old he was, 30. Anyways, have a great night.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates.